This YCN segment is brought to you by Lake Sunapee Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice.
Welcome in, YCN Sports Talk. Jeremy Stout, and joining me this week is Rob Taylor, Executive Director of the Lebanon Area Chamber of Commerce. And Rob, thanks for coming back 2 weeks in a row, and it's going to be your final week here with us.
Yeah.
And as people may have heard, may not have heard, we have 2 weeks left, this one and then next. Then we're taking some time off for the summer, and then we'll be back in the fall with 1 hour, and it's going to be in the evenings live. So we're excited to be putting those in the works. And Rob, we'll talk some Red Sox to start. And after a tough weekend losing 2 of 3 to the Astros, they go on the road, split the first 2 against Toronto. Good homestand, where they had the Mariners, and losing 2 out of 3 to the Astros. They go 5-3, but kind of a disappointing weekend against the Astros.
Yeah, the word I would use is lackluster. Kind of inconsistent play from them so far this year. Obviously, with the just absolute abysmal April and early start, sort of salvaging it and started put some wins together there in the last month or so. But I would say still some inconsistencies on this squad so far this year. They're hanging around. They're, 2 or 3 games back in the win category, probably 4.5, 5 games
right, yeah,
back.
Overall.
Yeah. So they're there. Baseball, as we've talked about many times in the past, it's about sort of getting into a rhythm and getting into some sort of a momentum and carrying that through a real long stretch and actually playing consistently. Pitching has been sort of an up and down for them this year. We'll talk a little bit about that. But, I'm very content.
Right,
as a Red Sox fan, having 3 championships in the last 15 years sort of puts you in that position to just kind of be relaxed and be sort of we're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And kind of like I talked about last week with Alex Cora, we can be patient.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We knew what they did last year wasn't going to happen again this year with just the offensive explosion. The pitching staff, everybody was healthy, winning over 100 games, basically steamrolling every team they played in the playoffs, including the World Series. So we kind of expected that, and we'll talk a little bit how we're looking at the first 1/3 of the season, basically. But we go into this road trip. They have 4 in Toronto and then 3 against Houston. They've already won 1, lost 1 against Toronto. What do you think, important, or where does this stand on kind of level of, you're right, they've kind of straightened it out from April, but they're still not quite there yet.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just not seeing consistency. The roster, there's some deficiencies in the lineup, some holes. We talked last week about Jackie Bradley.
Yeah.
Some guys are underperforming. I think some guys are overperforming. So, last year I think what made it special was just the sort of depth that they had and the consistency from all of their players, bench players, to starting pitching and relievers. So, I think it's going to take some more time for this team to kind of gel up a little bit more. As long as they sort of stay, somewhere in the pack,
right,
and they can threaten in the home stretch, that's going to be okay. They can't let it get out of hand. And, of course, they've been playing some quality teams. Obviously, the Astros, I think, are one of the best teams in the league. And you kind of saw that when they sort of faced off against them. I'm sort of pleasantly encouraged that we're going to be in a pretty decent shape going into the sort of heart of summer. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Astros. They play them 3 last week and 3 coming up on this road trip. So that's 6 out of their 10 games against the Astros. They come up. They also play the Indians going forward, and then obviously the Yankees as well. One good news coming off the injured list was David Price. He had a good start on Monday in the day game. Didn't pitch a ton of innings, but he kept them in it. Obviously, the offense exploded. So it's a good sign to see David Price. He's back. Looks like he's ready to go for the season.
Yeah. I'm very encouraged by that. I think that's a really big thing to have him sort of bringing his muscle back into our lineup. I saw a really great thing. I don't know if you saw it on NESN. They did a David Price sort of in-depth thing. A football life that NFL Network does. Well, NESN did a kind of a pitcher's life with David Price. Really fun to see sort of where he came from, pitched for Vanderbilt, and kind of how he developed as a player. That sort of gives you a real great background into him as a competitor. He was a just unbelievable young young talent when he came to Vandy, pitcher and a hitter.
Yep.
And he sort of had to choose whether he was going to be a pitcher or a hitter, and obviously he chose to be a pitcher. But I was super impressed. Gave me a lot more respect for him.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy to see him back in our lineup. So
yeah, he's a good guy. He's clearly had some missteps along the way, obviously a couple years ago with some dust-ups, but he's a good guy. He's a competitor, and he's the guy you want. Although he struggled at times, I think he's going to be here for the long haul, or at least for the rest of this season, so that's good to see. And this team is, like I said, slowly taking shape and moving forward. So we'll take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk some more Red Sox. Obviously, we got into kind of how it's gone so far, but going forward, can the bullpen hold up? Michael Chavis, what's he going to do going forward? And also Jackie Bradley Jr. He looks like maybe he's getting hot. So we'll talk about all that coming up next. You're watching YCN Sports Talk.